So I would like to hand over to Paul Taylor, who's Senior Vice President for Corporate Marketing at Prism, who's going to chair a panel discussion on automation and AI. So thanks, Paul. Thanks for joining us, and over to you. And Jock, stay on, please.
Thanks, will do.
Thanks, Kerry. Okay, so we've got quite a short panel session coming up today with some great speakers. I think they're all popping up on screen now, where we're trying to get right into the practicalities of automation, as we've just heard of from Jacques. So I'm Paul, I work at SS&C Blue Prism, an automation tech company serving over 2,000 customers across 70 different industry verticals. So got some knowledge around this topic as well. But this isn't about me, it's about our four speakers. So we have Atul, who I can see has popped up on screen, who is the founder at Supply Wisdom and Neo Group. We've got John. I'm looking for John on screen. I don't see him yet, but hopefully he's out there somewhere. Ah, there he is. He's the VP of Partners over at Faethm. Hey, John. And we've got Agnieszka, who I did see pop up a moment or two ago, who's the head of robotics, RPA, and advanced automation over at Nordea. And
I'm not able to start my video. Someone else has to do it for me. It says it's blocked by the organizer, so you don't want to see my face.
Okay, cool. Well, we do want to see your face, so we're hoping that Kerry or Abby can
okay, now it will be. Yeah.
There you are. Wonderful. And we're also obviously joined by Jacques, who we've just heard from, in the previous session. So I'm going to get straight into this. I'm going to start with Atul. There's a lot of talk in the industry about automation being used as almost a silver bullet in terms of the skills gaps that we've heard about today. Can you just talk through practically how businesses can better understand their business process and perhaps increase scale and use of automation?
Thanks, Paul. So Paul, very clearly, when automation done right can be hypersonic, but there's many challenges to getting automation right, and more importantly, even more challenges to getting it to scale. But I want to talk about a specific tool technique that's being used to increase the efficacy of automation, which is process mining. So when you think about process mining, basically think about automated tools that are helping you analyze and track processes. So instead of doing it manually, there are systems that are actually doing it. So in all companies where you're using bots and corporate information systems, what they're really doing is they're tracking a significant amount of activity, right? And what they're actually doing is that this activity is being logged in the system. And what process mining tools, for example, do is they take this information and form a timestamp, a case ID, and an activity. And because they're tracking it automatically, they're able to start, then the system starts to identify where are the bottlenecks, where are manual decisions being made rather than automation, where are the workarounds. So right, companies will define an efficient process, but that's not necessarily how things happen. And because now you have systems doing it, you're getting fact-based, data-driven decisioning. And not only decisioning at a point in time where you can look at it and now make your processes more effective and efficient, but you also know where the biggest automation opportunity is. And then on an ongoing basis, since it's all being tracked by the systems, you're constantly able to find the next level of kind of efficiency that you're able to build. So I would highly recommend for the audience who hasn't looked at process mining tools is take a look at that to form the next level of efficiency in your automation.
That's great. Thanks.
Can I comment on that, Paul? Because I mean, there from practitioner perspective, I mean, it looks all great and fancy when we, discuss the product, but when we start testing that, I mean, I'm now talking about in general process mining tools that generate definitely a lot of data, which would enable us to take, as you say, fact-based decisions. But I think there's a big but, especially in the complex environment, which I'm working in, being Nordic bank, that has been in the market for like 200 years with like more than 3,000 applications. What we end up with is a bunch of data, and still you need someone to analyze the data. I would say we still have a challenge, not with all products, but with multiple products, that at the end of the day, still you have lots of information and you cannot really deal with that. So I still believe there is a gap or something to work with, basically to sharpen and enable the decision makers to take that decision faster, instead of having multiple analysts analyzing the data which we get.
Yeah, makes sense. Actually, on the data point, John, I might come across to you briefly. So we obviously hear a lot about data these days and the use of data to inform automation. But practically, getting to Agnieszka's point, how do you actually use that data and maybe tools like AI in order to make sort of changes within organizations?
Yeah, I think, let's see, that's a really interesting conversation. I might adjust what I was going to say here slightly. So kind of taking it up a level. So, but prior to the process mining or task mining is another thing that they do. We have Faethm, we've approached the problem at one notch above, right? So rather than have bots installed or tracking installed or looking at logs, how do you decide where you're going to start looking at the task and processes? So we built a couple models. The first one is a technology taxonomy where we're tracking roughly about 140 different AI technologies. So we have those into about 16 categories. So predictive analytics, fixed robotics, suggestion provisioning, all that, all the different AI technologies. And we track infrastructure categories as well. So these are things that impact the ability for AI to work correctly. So for example, quantum computing or 5G, they're not things that actually do or perform tasks, but they enable AI to work effectively. So it's important to understand if those are available when you're trying to implement these things. And then we put these on an S-curve out over 15 years. So basically from incubation to maturation over time. And then we augment these curves with country and industry layers as well, or even specific company curves. So that's kind of first building block. Then the second is we built a skills ontology, so a global ontology, about 6,000 roles. And then we atomize what it is to do work in each one of those jobs down to roughly 250 different, I'll call them attributes. So this is skills, knowledge, context, styles, and so forth. We also assign tasks to each one of those roles. So not what do I need to know how to do a job, but what do I actually do in my job? That's the task. And then we train a vector machine to understand how each and every one of those 140 technologies can impact over time each and every one of those 250 attributes in those 6,000 roles. So it's a little complex, I know, but this is why we do it for people. Right? So
you're kind of taking kind of the haystack, shrinking the size of the haystack so that people can then find the needle, right?
Yeah, and what we do with that data then is we really can uncover, and this gets to the point. So those are the building blocks. So now with this data, you can uncover the most beneficial technologies and where they can be applied within a company. Doesn't mean you have to, it's just recommendation. That provides you the insight on how an implementation might manifest itself within a workforce, specific to automation or augmentation or addition of roles. So the data provides visibility of the AI opportunity at the task or process level. And from here, then you would go into the task or process mining, right?
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes sense. So I'm keen to get into the sort of practicality piece in terms of how you can actually take all of this great data insights, whether that's some process task mining or indeed from the use of data. And Agnieszka, I'd like to come to you because you are the industry practitioner amongst all of these vendors and experts like Jack. So, how does automation get embedded within enterprises today in your experience?
I would say it doesn't come without challenges and tears, I have to say. We started in our bank 2015 in a fully decentral concept where the only thing we decided together was robotics vendor at that point of time. That was Blue Prism, and we continued with that. But after a while, we actually spotted that we need a central concept, so at least COE. Because especially in banks and financial institutions, you cannot have it right. You just need to have a compliance and you need to have standards and quality, etc. So slowly but steadily, we moved towards central model. And I know that there is a long discussion right now on the market about democratization of robotics or desktop automation. And I wouldn't say there is, one better of the other. For us, it was much better to move towards central concept, first of all, because of costs and because of quality and compliance. Even though we've been a guard of the standards in hub and spoke model, not everyone was really following. So there has always been a waste in between. We also wanted to make sure that whatever we build is efficient. So, you know, people claimed to talk about savings at the end of the day, but automation doesn't come for free. There is the infrastructure, you know, licenses and all of that. So we have to make sure that we have always a good business case. And we also moved from super expensive, you know, like consultant model to typically internal one. This is the one I believed in. And also while automating processes, we were releasing people from their jobs. So we thought, okay, maybe we can upskill them and so that they could find their future within automation space. And that was actually pretty successful, I have to tell you. Right now, we are a fully internally based unit serving, you know, the whole bank. We also decided to have location strategy for some of the functions, to have like low-cost approach, but still doing that internally, which I think has been a great success, because even if internal people are encouraging their business colleagues to look for the potential for automation, it is kind of true message for them. Yeah, so this is how we did it.
That's great. And something I wanted to try and pull on a thread of is that so often you hear, oh, automation is going to take away, you know, jobs and careers and things like that. So I wanted to sort of explore with you, as somebody that's in the heart of this, kind of how working within automation can help your career, and how, as a leader, it can help you better cope with some of the skills gaps that we're all struggling with, as we've heard throughout the sessions today. So can you maybe just talk through a few things that you've done specifically at Nordea around that?
Yeah, definitely. I would say that we still have, I mean, there is a discussion how many jobs we actually cut and how many we create. And I would say, looking into Gartner, that like Ludwig was saying, I would say we still have a tendency to create more than we are able to cut. So it's still, I think, a huge space for different types of automation. Definitely robotics is not able to do it all. But we, in a combination with more advanced platforms, we can basically see the potential of like, you know, 50% maybe of cut in typical back office activities. But it doesn't mean that we don't have new roles, because I mean, someone needs to develop those robots, someone needs to maintain them. We need, you know, engineers to look into the IT landscape, and we need, let's say, to have product owners who will own them. So I would say that there is a huge variety of new activities which are super tempting. And then right now, everyone on the market all over the world is actually searching for those roles, and there are still quite few. So the idea we had in the bank was, instead of, you know, competing with our competitors for those, and we have to imagine that, you know, if people want to work in technology, they would probably go for Google, not for Nordea being a bank, although we are actually quite advanced with technologies. But, you know, how we can make up for that. So we decided actually to work super close with Science World and with universities, and we created, at least first in Poland, business process automation faculty, where actually we combined teachers from universities and practitioners from the business for them to work together and actually deliver practical insights to our future employees. And actually, I invited to that exercise multiple companies from the Nordic market and Polish market, just to work together, because at the end of the day, we have common goal. We want to have more people with these kind of skills. And it is like continuous improvement, because we have created a 3-year faculty, but now we are discussing, okay, what about big data? What about blockchain? I mean, this is evolving every single day. So you cannot have, like in the past, okay, now we will come up with lectures and that will stay for 30 years. I mean, that becomes obsolete next week. So you really need to have this, you know, agile, adaptable concept where you need people from the business to bring this to you. So this is how we've been addressing the topic.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I think it's just so much further forward than how I've heard other people talk about it. I did want to spend 60 more seconds with Atul, because you know, there's a lot of talk of new skills being created, you know, and new ways of working. And I know you had some specific sort of thoughts around how these things are preventing supplier disruption and instance in the landscape that we're living through today. And then I'm going to come across to Jacques for final comments. But Atul, you first.
Great, thank you. So let me use a specific use case. This is a story from one of the fastest growing mortgage banks in the US, leveraging supply wisdom. So if you think about supplier and supply chain risk management, traditionally, how have companies done that? They look at the health of a supplier when they're onboarding by doing kind of a survey. And often the survey is limited to the financial and cyber health of that supplier. So very limited view, a point in time takes a very long time and very difficult to verify this information. What we did is we basically leveraged bots and APIs to be this massive collection of public available data on a continuous real-time basis, and then leveraging machine learning and AI to verify truth of data, sentiment with positive, negative, and to also be able to run an impact analysis, like will this cause a supply chain disruption across 7 risk dimensions: financial, compliance, operations, ESG, location, and nth parties. And what that's fundamentally doing is it's giving customers early warning, right? And what this mortgage company was able to do, again, it's very fast growing, so their risk department would have continued to grow to better monitor the health of their third parties and suppliers so it doesn't cause an operations problem. They're telling us that within a month of adoption of the tool, they are 3x more productive than they were, which they're telling us basically, so they are not having to hire those team members, and they have much bigger coverage and access to early disruption warning. So more effective risk management program. So I think that's a great example of a use of how you leverage automation to actually produce results very quickly. And of course, there is always today a last mile human. So I would say it's AI plus human, not entirely AI.
That's great, thanks. And a really nice segue, I think, into Jacques. So Jacques, I'm going to ask you to do my job for me. And maybe just sum up what you've heard. You mentioned the phrase sense maker. So come on, like provide some sense making into the three thoughts that we've heard.
Yeah, Paul, thanks a lot. It was fantastic. Just the way I'm looking at this, Atul started with process mining, and he talked about, even if you think about data being generated across the business, but also your demand side, supply chain, everything. Just imagine a world where you've got that kind of data about a business. If you instrument a business, say you've got employee data, you know about the employee wellness. If you think about what Faethm, what John was saying about what Faethm.ai is doing in terms of just generating data about information, knowledge about your business, all of that is helping to instrument and understanding the dynamics of that business. And if you think about things broadly, in terms of all the things that we are doing, if you want to create models, say you want to improve processes, you want to create kind of data-driven models of these kind of businesses, processes, pieces of equipment, whatever it is. But just imagine if you can create almost a digital twin of your business in all its aspects, not only the business, but also all aspects that it touches in terms of supply chain and so forth. You can start doing simulations and optimization. And I think that's a kind of world that we're moving towards as well. And it was very interesting to listen to Agnieszka as well in terms of just what's happening in the bank. And what I see there is, you can see they're actually applying some of the things that I'm advocating for. The Industrial Data Corporation's got a big data analytics or AI framework. And I didn't talk about it in my talk, but they're actually taking you through the various stages of being ad hoc, opportunistic, repeatable, managed to optimize. And she was talking about continuous improvement and so forth. But if you think about those 5 pillars that I mentioned in my talk about intent, technology, people, data, and process, and you're trying to improve in terms of all 5 of that, but in a holistic way, and going from an ad hoc stage right through to an optimized stage, that provides some structure to that. And now just imagine if you've got the tools available by Faethm.ai, you've got the things that you are, if you look at Blue Prism in terms of robotic process automation, that covers a big part of the automation piece. But now if you think about also that smart technology toolbox, where you've got deep learning, natural language processing, computer vision, all these kind of things, that's going to help with automation on so many different levels going forward. And there's more possibilities in terms of automation and so forth. So I think there's incredible potential. It's great to hear basically what people are saying here. And I think it sounds like everybody's on the right path. Everybody's contributing to creating that potentially better world. And we just need to just steer in the right direction, making sure that we keep it human-centric. Think about stakeholder capitalism economy, not only shareholder economy. Think about the workers, the people that you're affecting. All of those kind of things are also very important. But yeah, that's a brief summary.
No, thank you. So for me, it's like almost a chemical equation of how to bring all of these different elements together to get to a great outcome. So on that basis, thanks very much for taking my closing comments, because you did a far better job than I'd be able to. I'm going to say thank you to the panelists. It's been really enjoyable to listen to your examples today. And I'm going to pass back to Kerry and beg for forgiveness for being 3 minutes over.
No, you've done a sterling job. Thank you so much, Paul, and thank you all so much for contributing. It's been a fascinating session, and we will be breaking this session out and replaying it and repurposing it for the broader community. So thank you all so much for joining.